Hi, welcome back. It's Actful Voices. Hopefully you enjoyed the very first episode that we launched. And hopefully you enjoyed this episode with Dr. Krishauna Hines-Gaither. And she had to say this.
Then she added a detail that would change the course of my life.
Well, it's Actful Voices. Such a beautiful message there, and a song was written by a fellow teacher, Richard Desmage. Thank you so much for that. It can be found at actful.org/IamMyLanguage. But first, a message from my colleague, Christine.
I'm really excited to chat and learn about Dr. Krishauna Hines-Gaither. My experience with diversity was very limited growing up in a small town. My first real memory of understanding the vastness of language and culture was when my aunt and cousin moved here from Kenya and they visited my high school geography class. I just remember being just absolutely amazed. I was around 14 and they were around my age as well. My cousin and her friend came as well. And they spoke like 5 or 6 languages. One of them, she could write in Japanese. I remember I was just absolutely fascinated that she could do that. I'm really excited to see where Krishauna takes us and what she has to say today and just the future of Actful overall with her at the head. I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Dr. Krishauna Hines-Gaither, Ph.D., is the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships at Mount St. Mary's University in Los Angeles. She taught Spanish and methods in higher education for almost 2 decades in North Carolina. Her publications include 2 recent books, The Antiracist World Language Classroom and Mastering Spanish Through Global Debate. She has authored or contributed to over 7 books and published multiple articles. She is the 2026 President of ACTFL, the first African-American woman to lead the association in 60 years since its founding in 1967. In 2022, she co-chaired and launched ACTFL's inaugural Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Let's welcome Dr. Krishauna Hines-Gaither.
I Am My Language, Roots, Rhythm, and Resistance. This is a topic that is close to my heart as well, and I want to learn so much. And I love learning other viewpoints and understanding. We also have Christine Schreiber on the call with me, my counterpart at ACTFL. Say hi.
Hey, it's good to be here again. It's nice to finally meet Krishauna and put a voice to the name.
Yes, yes. So, to get started, Krishauna, would you just give a brief description of how you entered into language as a professional, as a teacher? What garnered your interest into teaching language?
Sure. So, like many of us, I took Spanish when I was in high school and I loved it and I excelled at it, but I was not committed to it. So I still made mediocre grades, but I knew my stuff. But I just wasn't the most diligent student in high school. And so I was working. I actually had never planned to go to college. I am a first generation college student. And my family, I come from a long line of powerful women who are business owners, but not college educated. But in many respects had done better than a lot of the women who I knew who were college educated. And so I just thought I would work in our family business, that's just what I assumed I would do. But college was really not on my radar. So I worked as a waitress in a restaurant. I had a woman to sit in my section, an African-American woman named Carolyn. And I knew her sort of from the community. I had gone to high school with her son, and we had attended the same church for a little bit, but I didn't really know her personally. But in any regard, I was a very good waitress. And she told me that. She said, "You're so professional, you're so poised, you're so on top of things." She said, "Have you ever considered being a flight attendant?" And I said, "No." And so she tells me, I am a recruiter for the airlines, and I would love to recruit you as a flight attendant. She said, "It's essentially the same job,
Yeah.
but you would just be doing it in the air."
Wow.
Ansley, Christine. Then she added a detail that would change the course of my life.
Oh, yeah.
She
Oh,
said to me, if you would go back to school to learn what she called a foreign language, you
mhm.
could do international flights and then you would be able to see the world.
Everything. Yeah. Open it
Everything in my
up
life
completely.
changed at that moment because it really was the first glimpse into a career, into a future, into greater purpose that I
Hmm.
had had. And so I followed her advice. I checked myself into a community college, and I have a PhD, but I will always give honor to my start in a community college.
Mm.
And so I checked myself into a community college, enrolled in a Spanish classroom, where I met a white woman named Susie Keener, who became a great force in my life. And she mentored me, was my Spanish professor, helped me to go abroad, helped me with my
It's
college applications to
amazing.
transfer to a four-year school. And so that's the way that my language journey began with Spanish.
Oh, wow.
That's
That's
such an
great.
interesting start. Wow.
Just let me know if they're adopting.
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't mind some travel around the world. No, that's great. That's an
That was always
awesome.
a dream of mine too, as a flight attendant. So for you to just kind of get recruited like that is so interesting. And then for that to then push you into this language is
Yeah.
very, very cool start.
Interestingly, I never went back to be recruited at the airline
Oh,
because when I landed in Susie's classroom, I think a part of me wanted to be just like Susie. I loved the process of learning, the curiosity of it, and I was good at it. Like I
mm,
was feeling success, and the experience of success is so important for young people. I had found something that I really enjoyed and that gave me great joy. And so I turned and decided to go into academia and education and pursue a teaching
Wow.
career as opposed to being a flight attendant. So I still travel
Wow.
all over the world. So I get the bug out of me, but I changed course and ended up as
Wow.
an educator instead.
That's
wow.
super interesting. I love that story. That's what a Netflix special we could have.
That is great. I love to hear such inspiring stories. And of course, for all the teachers around the world, just understand the effect. The teachers that have had a big effect on me were my language teachers. They had the biggest effect on
Mm,
me. So this is a great segue into this passion that you have, and then this theme that you also have. I am my language, roots, rhythm, and resistance.
mhm.
Um, let's get started with that. Where do you want to start with that? What do you first think of when you think about this?
Well, I'll start with a quote from Chicana feminist author Gloria Anzaldúa, may she rest in peace. She wrote an amazing book called Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza. And in her book, she has a section called Linguistic Terrorism, and the title alone is very provocative.
Wow.
And so within that, she has a quote, and I studied her when I was in graduate school, and this quote never left me. So I will read this two-sentence quote for you, three
Sure.
sentences now. So, if you really want to hurt me, talk badly about my language. Ethnic identity is twin skin to linguistic identity. I am my language.
Mm,
Until I can take pride in my language, I cannot take pride in myself. End quote.
yeah.
That's pretty.
So the I am my language comes from that tag from her poem, that verse, I am my language. And I think this really talks about the complexity of languages. So she starts with, if you want to hurt me, the pain. And so I don't want to present languages as a utopia, with rose-colored glasses, because there is pain attached to people's language experiences, language legacies.
Hmm.
Languages have been taken away from entire groups of people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
People, there's accent bias, there's language bias, there's a hierarchy of
Mm,
languages in our system, in our society. But then she ends with the pride of languages. And that juxtaposition is where I feed into the language community, that there can be an examination of language and also we can have a great celebration of language. So I am my language. Based on that foundation, we honor, we affirm both our ancestral languages, the languages of our ancestors, whether we speak those languages or not, they flow through us. And then our acquired languages. And those are languages like I studied French, I studied Spanish. Those are my acquired languages. Black English is my ancestral language.
Mm.
And so, that is the I am my language. Roots refers to our ancestral legacies, our heritage, our stories. Rhythm refers to all that makes us whole, that makes us who we are. I call it la chispa de la vida, or those sparks of life. And then resistance goes back to that part where Anzaldúa speaks of being hurt. Resistance is the opposition to bias, discrimination, insensitivities in all forms.
Mm. This is all very true. Even as you speak, I can feel what you're speaking. On many, just my background being Haitian and understanding what you're saying there. It's so important to have an identity. And I could say for many years, growing up in a household in the US where I'm not sure of my identity and where I belong, you need to be rooted somewhere. This makes absolute sense. And your first point that you've written here was language as a catalyst for belonging, diversity, equity, inclusion, anti-racism. What do you have on that?
If educators can understand and see languages from a perspective of a value add, of asset-based instruction, then everything changes in terms of all the words that you just read, belonging, everything changes. But when educators see language as deficient and as a hierarchy, then we have a problem. And so let me explain what I mean by that. We see this throughout history. I'm a Southerner by birth. I live in Los Angeles, California, but I'm a Southerner born and raised. I say I am I live and work in Los Angeles, in a beautiful city, but I am a Southern girl from my core. But living in Los Angeles and having even a Southern accent, I have a very pronounced Southern accent, is what most people will tell me outside of North Carolina. And there's a lot of bias in what people relate to Southern accents. I can't tell you the insensitive things that I have heard based on simply having a Southern accent. And then, there are certain hierarchies, Chicano Spanish versus Spanish from Spain or Spanish from anywhere else in the diaspora, Haitian Creole, French from Montreal, Canada, versus French from France, is Portuguese from Brazil versus Portuguese from Portugal. And so you have from, the way that we have incorporated languages as Chicano siblings in the African American diaspora, as Southerners, all the way to what we would call more world languages. There are nuances within all of those. I choose to, when I was in the classroom for 20 years, I made sure that everyone knew that their language mattered and that we were building on a foundation that they already had. Now, many of them didn't necessarily see their language as in the totality and the fullness, which I felt they should, because they've been told it's bad English, it's broken English, it's Patois, it's Creole, it's a mixture of things. Comes from an uneducated class. And so there's a psychology that has to happen to break all of that down and then build them up again to say, no, anything that you use to communicate with your people, that is language. That is language. And so, but there's an education that has to happen on the part of one who has been consistently given the message of bad, of negative, of wrongness, and those who are in power in places of the classroom to be able to shift that. So my work over the years has been to work with both students and educators to bridge that gap.
That is so important. Again, that identity and then the inclusion for someone to find their roots and define that peace, define that self-esteem in language in their background. This is often many years of work, I would say, right?
Yeah,
what would
absolutely.
that process look like, do you think?
I do believe language is a journey that happens. One, I think it predates us. And so we inherit the linguistic legacies of our ancestors.
Yeah.
And so language predates, those who are living and breathing right now. I do believe that there are language legacies that literally, we call it blood memory, that flows through our blood from our ancestors. Even if we don't speak those languages, there's a legacy that is there that is incorporated into our very souls and into our being. And so I think it predates us. And then the process of languaging as a verb, it is truly a process. You're absolutely right. It takes a lifetime, even, going from coast to coast, let alone from it to a different country. Or North Carolina is divided into three plains.
Okay.
And so you have the oceans in the east. You
Okay.
have the mountains in the west, and then you have the Piedmont in the center.
Mm.
And so with that, there's such diversity of experience. In California, I don't even know where to begin. I think we have 200,
there's so
200 or
much.
so
Yeah.
languages represented in California. And we have the largest amount of indigenous tribes in California than I believe anywhere else. And so there's just so much richness and diversity. But many of those, even though we have the largest amount of indigenous tribes, many have not inherited their languages. And many of their languages have been taken away from them through boarding schools and day schools where they were told their languages were not valuable and they couldn't speak them. And so they were lost throughout the families. And so there's a lot of healing work that can happen with language. Sometimes it can be related to trauma as well, ancestral trauma or current trauma.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there's a lot of joy that if you speak to people who have learned a language, they often will have this dichotomous experience or where they have experienced some level of insecurity, of difficulty, of challenge as it relates to language. But there's also, they will highlight the joy that comes from meeting people and being able to converse in a way and opening doors of communication and relationships and travel, both locally and globally, that they would not have had before. And so embracing the joy of it all, that continues because with every little spark that we meet in every individual that opens our path, that is a beautiful experience. And then also acknowledging the difficulties that people can face as it relates to languages. Both of those have to walk in concert to create that language melange that we seek.
Yeah, that goes right into your next point. You're talking about positioning, human connection, and career readiness. And so that, as you say, as we position ourselves, how does that look? So what can we do? Let's say we're still working on ourselves and we're finding pride and we're reconnecting. So then how do we use that to position ourselves? What do you think will make us career ready when it comes to language?
So 90% of employers, we know through our research that 90% of employers say they rely on a workforce that speaks a language other than their own. 90% of US-based employers rely on a workforce that speaks a language other than English. And that's across fields, across sectors, in a myriad of ways that may manifest itself. And so we know that our employers are saying that this is a tool that we need. NACE competencies, they measure career readiness, attributes, and skills. Language, again, is a key competency that employers want, and that's in the United States. We haven't even traveled yet outside of doing international business or anything like that. That's in the US.
Wow.
And so we know that this is a skill that our employers are seeking. Now, some people are blessed that they are raised in bilingual, trilingual, multilingual homes or communities. And so they acquire those languages through that process. However, many of us have to acquire those languages within the classroom. And so we have to study those languages. And so in terms of career readiness, it does everything to catapult us into our next level, our next step. It gives us an edge. The majority of the nation is not bilingual. And so that gives us a competitive edge that we would not have had. And that opportunity It's open to many of us in our schools. Most of our high schools have it. It's unfortunate that we do not have more of an articulated language sequence where you can actually take languages from elementary school, middle school, and high school. Some districts have that, but it is becoming more rare, I would say, throughout
Yeah.
the country, unfortunately. But the beauty of the cultural melange in which many of us find ourselves is there are so many individuals and people with whom we can start language lessons and language conversations. And even if we're just picking up enough to get by, that's more than we had before. And so I do encourage everyone. There's so many free programs online. There's a lot of access that people can have to languages. And so I hope that as institutions, we will offer more. And I hope that as constituents, we will consume more.
Yeah, especially just in the current state of affairs of the world, it seems like education is not as important as it used to be, and a lot of
Mhm.
funding is being
That's
cut.
right.
And
And
it
language in specific.
That's correct.
exactly, and the worry is this, and an option to be able to slow things down, don't
Hmm.
keep you as informed. I mean, the more
Hmm.
languages you know, you're probably much more well informed.
Yeah.
And that's just an important piece to be career ready, to be ready for the next moments. No, these are very great,
Correct.
great points.
I'm definitely jealous of the bilingual kids I grew up with. I'm from a
Mm.
very small town. We grew up with Spanish speakers, and they taught us Spanish better than our teachers did sometimes. It was just, look now and I'm like, God, I really wish, similar to you, you're like, I wish I would have taken it more seriously. I just kind
Yeah.
of put it off, and I look now at all the jobs out there. Everybody says like bilingual preferred, and it's
Right.
just, yeah, but it's like you said, you need more resources. And I luckily have some friends who we now practice Spanish. I speak
Oh.
enough to get by, but we
Uh-huh.
now practice Spanish with each other, and we're each getting better. And it's so fun. Like it really, it does. It opens your everything. It
It
opens the world
does.
for you.
I was just going to add to
Mhm.
what Ainsley said earlier in terms of just the current, political climate. And
Mhm.
so we know that certainly there have been cuts to the Department of Education and others. But I wanted to, even before our current political climate, I would say throughout the years when the government has been, this is across political lines as well, when
Mhm.
the government has become invested in languages, typically it's for the cause of national defense.
Mm.
And I think there's great education that needs to happen on the part of the government as well,
Mm.
Oh, sure.
so that they understand that language is not just a catalyst for defense, but can be a catalyst for peace as well. And so if we build
What a foreign
relationships,
concept.
exactly, language can be a catalyst for peace. Costa
Yeah.
Rica is a prime example. They have no national military,
Mm.
but they have invested greatly in language education. And so they
Right.
haven't had a military, for decades now, decades,
Mm.
but they invest greatly in diplomacy and civic engagement and language education. And so I think there's education that needs to happen there. On the part of our business partners and corporate sponsors, they greatly value language as it relates to higher levels of financial outcomes for businesses, which is good. That goes back to career readiness.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think relationship building can also yield high dividends as well. And so I lean to humanistic language teaching,
Okay.
and I want all of these different sectors and industries to understand that language certainly can meet those goals that they have, which are, viable options, but it also has a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much more than just the bare minimum. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Diplomacy is talking, and
Hmm. Hmm.
you can't get there if you're defensive all the time. It's like, well, we
That's
can use it
right.
um, in
Well
another
said.
way.
Well said. Uh-huh.
Oh,
This is great.
goodness.
So along on these lines, there's another note that you mentioned, the value of both ancestral languages and acquired languages. You kind of touched on that. So what is your thought on ancestral languages and acquired languages, and how do they play together?
You know, I feel one can have an ancestral language that has not been acquired.
Okay.
And so I'm of West African descent through doing just some genealogical work, but I have not acquired those languages. So I have ancestral languages,
Okay.
my African-based language, but I have not acquired those.
Okay.
And so, so there is that bridge between some people have to come back, and in Spanish there's a word reivindicación, where you reclaim
Okay.
those ancestral languages, and the power of that when it happens. I know several people who have studied a language, studied abroad, related to one of their ancestral heritages, and it is such a powerful experience when they reclaim that language and relationship with their community.
Yeah.
But I like to start really at a different level. I like to start with something that when I teach Spanish or French, I also study French as well. I like to start at at a place where everyone can digest, and so I will oftentimes just start with some expressions and say, okay, in Spanish, there's this great expression, más vale solo que mal acompañado.
No?
It's better to be alone than in bad company. And so I'll teach my students that expression, and then I will ask them, what is an expression in English that is similar to that? And if they're of whatever race, whatever ethnicity, typically within their cultural group, they have some response to that.
Right.
And in African American culture, we oftentimes will say, I can do bad all by myself.
Yes.
And so that's a common expression that African Americans use. And many people didn't know that expression until Tyler Perry had a movie of that title. And then other people knew, oh, this is what Black people say, And so, but I like to use examples like that because people don't realize how much they language until you give them examples. When I moved from North Carolina to California, I went into a store and I was looking for a buggy. And I went asking for a buggy, and I got blank stares. And this is just from 3,000 miles from one coast to the next.
Wow.
They had no idea that a buggy was a shopping cart. And so and it took me a while to realize where was the confusion. Why I thought maybe it's my Southern accent. Why can't they understand? And really, they had never heard that term before. And that's just from one coast to the next. And so I like to just start there and show people how much they language, and that what they bring to the table is dynamic language. Because outside of your group, your community, people may not even have a clue what you're saying, because it is foreign in quotes to their ears. And so I like to just start where everyone can digest, where everyone can engage before we go to kind of the big L with languages. I like to start with a place where everyone can incorporate and can see themselves.
That is very, very true. It reminds me of, it's just overall, like even when you think about health and science, and from what I've read, a lot of the times when these old practitioners would work on people, they were banned, and then the information was used elsewhere. All this information that we know about health and medicines and different leads, that all was sourced through ancestral means.
Yes.
And the modern age is just an amplification of that. But it came from that. And then if you sort of disconnect that piece and you create a whole new piece, and then there's a lot of nuance left, that means a lot of our care is not the same.
Right.
And even when it comes, if you're a doctor and you're working in a certain region, you have to know about that care. You have to know about their fears. So in that process, we understand that there's acquired language, ancestral language is part of our being, and so we have to reclaim that. And then the process of all languages and language varieties are equally valid. You wrote here, acknowledgement of linguistic hierarchies, biases, and discrimination. So how does that play into that role?
I want to just pay homage to ACTFL, because in 2024, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of ACTFL needed to update one of our position statements that had not been updated. The position statement had not been updated since 2019. So it was 5 years outdated. And we made several adjustments and amendments to the position statement. And one of them was to add that line. And that actually came from one of our board members who said, this is very important that we add this. Well, we had never made that declaration before at ACTFL. That had never been made, to my knowledge. That declaration had never been made before in an official manner. That all languages are valid. are equally valid. That is powerful because now what we are saying is however people may language, that has to be honored and affirmed. And I can tell you that in many cases has not been the common sentiment within language education.
True.
There has historically been hierarchies of what is the most erudite language, what is the best language, what is the most sophisticated language within all of these different language communities. And so that was powerful, the fact that they affirmed that and put that out in a very public way. So that is also a foundational piece to I Am My Language, which I find very powerful. And so I think we have to do a lot of education around this. So I am working with, because it is, for every reason that I just gave, this is not the way that we were trained. We were trained that there's good Spanish, there's bad French,
Right.
there's, so we were trained in a very different way. And our textbooks are not written to affirm all languages are equally valid. Now, this does not mean that we throw out grammar. It does not mean that we throw out conjugation and subject-verb agreement. It doesn't mean that those things are not equal. They're equally valid. That's what the statement means. They're equally valid, but they are not better than.
Right.
And so we definitely want to give our students every tool possible to be as linguistically rich and proficient as they can possibly be. And at the same time, recognizing there's not a hierarchy there. We're giving you more tools. We're giving you a different strategy, but it is not better than what you say in your home or what you say in your home community. And so that is where we have to do this work. I'm working with the past president, L.J. Randolph of ACTFL. He's creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion companion guide to our standards, to our proficiency guidelines. And so part of my contribution to that is going to be information on how to activate that statement so that educators have the tools, which they probably did not learn in their teacher education programs or their language programs. We have to give them the tools to be able to honor and to affirm all linguistic variety. So that tool, in working actually with Kathy Shelton and with your office, we should be launching that pretty darn soon. And so our teachers will actually have a resource for making that come to life.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's amazing.
There was a term that I learned of the other day, and I never really thought about it. But the term is called optionality. And with optionality, it's your value of choices. A lot of languages don't have the optionality. They don't have the ability to have different choices. Say, as another language can have 100 choices. You can do this, you can do that.
Right.
But then they are purposely, all languages just have the same amount of choices.
I love that.
And I'm very happy to see, like with the DEI initiative, just the value of children now, and even adults, but children now can have that early onset self-esteem and awareness to already engage a better future. Because I know from my background, I didn't see it. Hey, value your background and share it. Oh man, this is just a wonderful, wonderful way. And this segues well into strategies for activation to market and leverage the value of languages. What is your feelings with that, Krishauna?
There's so much that we can do to activate this movement, as I call it. And the sky's the limit, really, to what individuals can do. And so I also want to say that the movement extends beyond, I know we're ACTFL and we're centered on language education, but the movement extends beyond language educators as well. Everyone languages, everyone does that. And so so I invite anyone to be a part of what I call this, this transformative movement. Anyone can be a part of it. And so some of the activations, you can simply tell your story, which is powerful. That is not simplistic. That is powerful, but yet it's accessible to everyone. Tell the story of your language journey, exactly what we've been doing here today. You've done that. Ansley, Christine has done that and talked about the way she's still shaping language, the way that you are still tracking your heritage. And so we can just share our language journeys, which would be powerful. In many schools, they have culture fairs, but it's rare that you see a language fair And I
Yeah.
would love to see more language fairs where people are talking about their language experiences. We
Yeah.
could activate through in the classroom, through essays, through oral histories, where students are interviewing their family and friends about their language journeys. We could also have art installations
Mm.
where people are showcasing this in artistic formats. I just had someone to create a song for me, and it's
Oh.
beautiful. You will be hearing it, called I Am My Language. They took the I Am My Language platform and created a beautiful song.
Oh man.
Wrote some lyrics,
Amazing.
put it to music. There's so much that can be done in the space of the classroom. Then you take whatever those activations are, whatever you have created, and we can then use that for advocacy. And
Mm.
so everything that you've created, you share that with your key stakeholders, with your legislated officials, with anyone who is in those positions of leadership and power. Share those activations with them on the pride, the joy, the power, the benefits, the experiences of language. And then finally, you leverage all of that to build more infrastructure for the language community. And that could be through more parental engagement because you're now inviting them to share their language journeys and stories.
Mm.
That could be through businesses, through nonprofit organizations, building partnership and strategic initiatives with your institution. And so then we leverage all of that to build a greater infrastructure for our language education community.
Yeah. That said wonderfully.
Hey, let's talk about TLE. What's that? The language educator. For news and tools you can use in the classroom the very next day, turn to the language educator. Every issue of TLE offers world language educators useful information about inspirational projects, innovative tools, and replicable programs. Share your inspiration, spread your ideas, and shout about your initiatives. Write an article for the language educator. TLE invites submissions from world language educators of any level, any language, and with any level of professional experience. From peer review to first person articles, your contributions are welcome. Remember, TLE, the language educator.
So for your life now, Krishauna, how do you I don't know, do you have any children? I didn't even think about understanding family life.
Yes, I have one son,
Oh, okay.
an 11-year-old spirited little boy.
Okay. So in your
Sweet.
family, how do you make language a thing? What is your process? I just interested as an educator and a mother, that's very interesting to me.
So I have my son knew Spanish before he knew English.
Ooh.
I have
Oh,
spoken to him
amazing.
in Spanish since birth, since he was in the womb, actually. I
Mm.
have always spoken to him in Spanish since he was in the womb because I felt, I worked at a university
Yeah.
where students were paying $100,000 to come there to pay our university their tuition for me to teach them Spanish. And then they would pay another $5, $10,000, $20,000 to go abroad
Wow.
to continue to study languages. And I quickly surmise I have a free gift that I can give to my child that won't cost him anything but his openness and his time.
Yeah.
And so I am very honored when he was 5 years old, I put him in Spanish immersion. And he is, an African American, multiracial child. And he was the only Anglo speaker that tested into the native speaker class.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so to see this little boy, in with all of these native speakers and holding his
It's
own,
amazing.
just
Wow.
just really
That's
blessed
amazing.
me. Now he has digressed a lot since he ended up needing to go to another school and was taken out of Spanish immersion, and so
Okay.
we're now trying to rebuild his
Mm.
skills. But he still has such a strong language foundation, can understand anything that you say to him in Spanish, and we're still trying to rebuild his tongue. But he has always had a culture of language. In my wedding, when I got married, before I had him, so 20 years ago,
Mhm.
we had, I believe, 7 languages represented in our wedding. And
Wow.
so it has always been, we had a song in Haitian Creole, Kitem Loué.
Mm.
We had our scriptures read in English and Spanish. We had
Oh,
members of Nigerian women who were Igbo and Yoruba in our wedding. When I gave birth to my son, we had a Nigerian naming ceremony for him. And
Wow.
so language has always been inculcated into the life of my family, my community, and definitely into the life of my son. And again, all that I mentioned, that's right here in the United States. In
Wow.
addition to that, my son is very well traveled. And so at 11 years old, he's visited, I think he grew up to 15 countries now.
Oh,
Wow.
So he just has but everything I mentioned happened right here in the US. So I want to say that because I know that not everyone has the privilege of travel. But
Mhm.
so all the things I mentioned, all of that great engagement with the languages happened right here in our home community. But I'm grateful that he has also had a rich experience of travel and seeing the world and seeing other cultures. So now it's just become fun to him with throwing out places where he wants to visit. Mom, I want to go to Bora Bora. I'm like, oh, how did you find out about Bora Bora? I saw it
Oh my
on YouTube, you know?
gosh.
Yes, that has been a great joy to me is being able to share something that I love and hold so dearly with my son, with my husband, as well, and my entire family.
That's
that's wonderful.
amazing. I've heard, as my friends who have grown up speaking Spanish, I've heard they have said it's easier to go from Spanish to English than English to Spanish. And that always makes me feel a little better because I struggle
Mhm.
so bad with the conjugation of Spanish.
Yeah, yes,
And so
yes.
that, but I always thought that was interesting because I look at Spanish as just, oh, so difficult. And like, I'm just so impressed
Uh-huh.
by it.
Right.
So for them to say that English was tougher, I was like, oh,
Yes.
wow, like it is so smart to teach young, start them in Spanish then. Like
Right.
I encourage that for sure. That's amazing. I'm glad you've done that.
Absolutely. Thank
And
you.
I know I've been saying this a lot on this, but it's so important for children, especially, to feel rooted. And
Hmm.
that's what I get from this
Yes,
conversation. They need to
absolutely.
feel rooted, and what are teachers doing to help students feel rooted?
Hmm.
So, this is a wonderful conversation. Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Krishauna, for this information. Is there a way to contact you? Is there a way to do you want to reference a website? Whatever you feel free
Oh, wonderful.
to mention, feel free to do so here.
Awesome. Well, I would say I'm very active on Instagram at Cup of Diversity is my tag, Cup of Diversity. And so very active on Instagram, probably my main source, as well as LinkedIn, of my name, Krishauna Hines-Gaither. And I do have a website
Mhm.
I have two websites. One is a blog that is called Cup of Diversity as well. And I invite people to engage with my blog. I put a lot of great information out on that space, that platform. And then I have a professional website for consulting. And I do, quite a bit of work just helping people to get there, with
Yeah, yeah.
diversity, equity, inclusion, with language, on a variety of topics. And my website is my last name with no hyphen, Hines-Gaither Consulting.com.
I feel like you would
Wonderful.
be really good at that. I feel like you would be a great life coach in a way.
Yeah, I do coaching. I do all of that.
It
Yes, I
doesn't
do.
surprise me at all. That's wonderful. I can feel that.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm so this last little piece here, which I'm curious about. I remember we spoke earlier about the tagline, "I can do bad all by myself." Do you have another one? And I'm gonna see if me and Christine could get the value of that meaning out
Sure.
from. So let's go ahead and shoot one at
Okay,
us.
so the other one is if you like it, I love it.
Oh,
Ooh,
What do you think that means? If you like it, I love it. That's a strong African American saying. If you like it, I love it.
for me, I feel like that's solidarity. That
Mm-hmm.
is, hey, if you're
mm,
interested in that, I'm supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
that's sweet.
That's the feeling I get from that. What do you feel,
Okay.
Christine?
Yeah, I see, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, if you like it, I love it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a sense of community, like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a relationship bonding phrase of like, yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested in what you're interested in. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a fun phrase. That's neat.
Yeah.
Now, are you ready for me to reveal to you what it means?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, man. I hope I'm
And
right.
it's interesting because I grew up saying this. My mother says it all the time. It's a common phrase. And I went to the African American Museum in DC and they
Mhm.
had a wall of like Black sayings. And this was on the wall. And I thought,
Oh no.
who would think that their language one day would end up in a museum? So here, that is a wonderful expression that is so. there's a documentary in which I participated, and it's called The History of Black English, and it was
Okay.
produced by BET, Black Entertainment Television.
Okay.
And it's on BET.com on YouTube. Anyone can get it. But I talk about this in that documentary. So in African American culture, we often have contrary to fact sayings. And so sayings that exude opposites. And so the opposite of what you actually mean. So you like it, I love it actually means I don't like it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's the exact opposite. And so if you were to put on your, say, oh, mom, what do you think of this prom dress? Your mom could say to you, oh, if you like it, I love it, which means I would never wear that.
Oh my gosh. It's like the Texas bless your heart,
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That's
I
another
would
one. That's right.
would have never, I would go and use that phrase right now. If you like it, I love it. And people were probably going to look at me like I'm crazy, but I was just trying to bond.
Yes, but it sounds like such a clean statement, but really it's the exact opposite. So now if you were to say that, Christine, just think of the context and think, oh, I'm really not in favor of this. I'll say, if you like it, I love it.
Oh my gosh.
I can apply that to a
funny.
lot out there in the news. But
Me
I'm gonna
too.
keep that to myself.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
funny.
just going to start sending it to Ansley randomly.
Oh man.
You can use it incognito, like you're in a meeting. You and Ansley are the only ones who know it,
If you
Great
do it,
idea.
I'm gonna move it. Okay, no, I don't know. But no, that makes a point because when you said it a second time and I got the tone,
Right.
I understood.
That's right. That's
Because
exactly
when you threw out the statement, I'm thinking I'm analyzing the word, but then this is a perfect example.
That's
Someone
right.
says, "Well, if you like it, I love it." Oh, well,
That's
whoa, that sounds different and feels
That's exactly
different.
right.
And then I'm like, makes sense, and it also makes sense in terms of from history of being slaves. You can't really say what you want to say,
That's
True.
exactly that's from which it
Very
comes.
true.
That's right.
and
That
so
is how that was birthed.
it's kind of coded.
Wow.
Well, we
That's
just learned
exactly-
something, and I was like, I'm over
I'm
here
going to start
overthinking.
using that.
Absolutely. It is open to all. Open to all.
I picked up a Spanish phrase a couple weeks ago in when we were in Mexico, que vergüenza. And so
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
saying that all the time. So now I'm going to start saying, if you like it, I love it.
And you said that beautifully too.
Oh, thank
You
you.
guys are showing off with the
right.
R's here. The Spanish R's, you guys are showing off. That's great.
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much
So
for this,
fun.
Krishauna and Christine, and this wonderful conversation. And as we have more of these, I think we're going to have another speaker at some point that also will have a lot on Indigenous language. And that should be coming up in the next couple of months. So I implore you guys to check that out too. And if there's anything, anyone have anything to say to close out?
I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and letting me listen in and chat when I can.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And as always, the future speaks through us. Until next time.